Hello, welcome to the Crossroads Inn. For the first time, we're going to go with a saying, we are the Crossroads Inn, we drink and we know things, although this is water.
That was my idea.
I know. So, today on my panel, I have Cory as usual.
Greetings, everyone.
And I have a very special guest, very familiar to some Thoughts from Aunt Wu fans. I have Julia.
Hello.
So, we are now getting into The Queen's Justice, Episode 3 of Season 7 here of Game of Thrones that was aired last night. So, let's get right in. Cory, why don't you tell me your initial thoughts on this episode?
Well, you already know Mark. Mark and I are going to fight a lot this episode, so this is going to be
Really?
very dramatic.
I don't think so.
I loved this episode with every fiber of my being. This episode solidified Euron Greyjoy as an absolute joy and badass. So I love that. I love everything going on at the end of the episode with Jaime and the trade of Casterly Rock and Highgarden. It was just like a thrill to watch. I love the opening of the episode with Jon and and Daenerys. Even though Daenerys did borderline a little obnoxious to me, and we could probably have a healthy discussion about that when it comes to the time, but nevertheless, I still very much enjoyed it. My only real complaint was the stuff with the grayscale, because by the looks of it, Jorah's cured, and that if he truly is cured, and they really don't do anything with this knowledge or arc or information, then that was just a waste of time. And I know in the books he never gets grayscale, so
Somebody else gets grayscale, though.
Yeah, somebody else gets grayscale, so unless the knowledge of him being healed is useful, or somehow it just plays into the end of the show, that was kind of a waste for me, but nevertheless, it doesn't hurt the episode. I thought this episode was phenomenal.
All right, how about you, Julia?
Yeah, I really liked it. I don't know that I would say it's the best ever. I didn't have the same problems I think you had with it, Mark, and I found it very entertaining and got pretty much what I wanted out of it. And I've loved Jon and Dany interacting because I've wanted to see that for years, and I was very satisfied with that, especially since I was expecting that to come at the end. So to have such a big chunk of time dedicated to that made me very happy. My main quarrel, besides the grayscale, has to be Bran. I kind of get what they're doing with him. I just don't like it necessarily. Mm-hmm. But we can get into that later.
Yeah. So I think they both kind of hinted. I'm negative, and I'm really negative. I found this episode to be very indicative of why I'm a little bit afraid of this season and the future of this show. There are a whole bunch of things that just felt really weird. This episode felt so rushed to me in comparison to previous episodes. Game of Thrones has been a show where they give things time to percolate and to get to the right place before kind of going to that climax. And instead they've just been like, let's just go. And I understand that. I understand why. But I almost feel like it's not... I don't know who made the decision of, we're going to do 7 episodes this season. But I don't think that it was HBO saying, you only have so much money, only do 7 episodes. Because this show is making a plenty of money. I really don't think that's true. So it kind of feels like, I don't know why this season was 7 episodes with the way that this story is trying to be told. I also think that there are some really serious narrative concerns. That being said, I'm very negative right now. I'm going to continue to be very negative. But I reserve the right to kind of change my opinion later on in the season. To kind of put my Thoughts from Aunt Wu hat on for a minute. I do think this is an episode that if things for the rest of the season get good and they go in the right direction, this episode I will look back on a lot more positively. But because we don't know where we're going, I can only evaluate things as to where we are right now. And where we are right now is, I think, pretty bad. And I'll just kind of go through that as we go throughout the episode. So we are going to continue on our kind of track of going family to family. It's a little weird this episode because you had a lot of cross-family interactions. So we're kind of do them as best we can. We'll start with obviously the opening being on Dragonstone, and we get Jon and Davos arriving, and right off the bat for me, I understand why you want to streamline this show and you want it to be quick and we don't need a massive like amount of time dedicated to them traveling. But at the same time, for me it makes the world feel so small when it's like, oh yeah, Jon and Davos got on a boat from Winterfell and now they're in Dragonstone. When in the past it's like, the Hound and Arya took, a whole season to go from one part of the Riverlands to another part of the Riverlands. Like, the world felt really big and like there's all these different things going on. And even like Arya this season, like she runs into these Lannister soldiers, then she's in the inn with Hot Pie, then she's in the north. Like, it feels distinct. And for this one, it's like I would have liked at least some connective tissue that made me feel like, oh yeah, Jon actually traveled. And it wasn't like, well, I'm going to knock on the next castle down the street and see if they've got some butter.
I
Ty?
Sorry, yeah, my microphone just came out. You guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep.
So what I was saying is, like, I see your point, and it's just like one of those things where traveling back then meant more, because that's when the character development happened in the earlier seasons. Because while they were walking and making it long distances, that's when the exposition was being told. That's when you really find out what these characters were thinking and developing and all that. We're at the point of the show now where that's done, and now the major things just need to happen. We can't be at a point where we just need to wait for traveling, and if we do, it hurts the narrative more. So I'm accepting it. I've accepted the fact that traveling means nothing in the show anymore, and now we're just watching things happening, and it doesn't derail anything in the show for me.
What about you, Julia?
Yeah, I was actually going to say something along the same lines. Like, I just don't see what the gain would be, what the advantage would be to the show from a narrative point to show Davos and Jon traveling, because I know you wanted to see them bonding a little bit, but we've seen them bond. We've seen, I feel like their relationship is at a solid point right now, and there's not really much they can grow. We already know, as Cory said, who both of them are as characters, so we don't really need any exposition, any backstory. So unless they were going to have something happen to Jon, it's kind of like Chekhov's gun. Why would they show the journey unless something important was going to happen on the journey? So if the end result of their trip is that they land at Dragonstone, there's no real point at having them land at showing the journey to Dragonstone unless something significant would occur.
I guess that's fair, and I'm not saying we need like a multi-episode travel montage of them going, but like the fact, and I guess on some level it's like the last episode ends with like Jon, I'm going to Dragonstone, and then this episode begins with them getting there, and I know that time, like logically, I know time must have passed, but it feels to me like they're doing everything they can to like streamline certain plots, but this makes me even more annoyed at other things that then weirdly slow down and start not mattering. Like, Cory talked about grayscale, and we'll get to that in more detail, but like there's a good example. Like, I don't know why we spent time on that. The Missandei Grey Worm scene that I thought was completely gratuitous and over the top. Like, there are still moments where like they're slowing down. I don't know. I just feel like maybe this is more of like an overall meta discussion about Game of Thrones, but because they started off in this place where it takes so long to travel, when you don't do that, it suddenly feels like off. And maybe if you kind of looked at this episode completely on its own and kind of were like, okay, yeah, you're right. There is no like narrative purpose to showing the travel. You're probably right, but it makes the world feel so small to me. But I want to move on a little bit because I don't want to get bogged down entirely on the travel part, because I think there's a lot more to talk about. I really do like, the one thing I did really like about the opening is seeing all the old alliances and old like relationships coming into play. Like Tyrion and Jon have had a really fun relationship. I really like the way they acted in the show. Having like Davos, the fact that you like, oh yeah, he was Hand of the King on this island with Stannis, and he tried to take King's Landing and Tyrion stopped him. Like all these weird things, like you start to realize like how much stuff has actually transpired throughout the show. I thought that was handled pretty well.
I would have liked to see more of Davos being a bit antagonistic towards Tyrion, especially because Tyrion is responsible for the death of his son, and I feel like
Does he know that though?
They established that who stopped the defense. I thought that's what they made clear in that interaction, but I guess if he doesn't know.
I mean, I think he knows that Tyrion was there, but I don't know if it was clear that Tyrion's the one who came up with the wildfire idea and all of that.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Because he could just assume, oh, Tyrion was the one who, led the actual battle charge, which is true, he did.
Okay.
I did think... Or, Cory, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, with this interaction between them, I something I did like, and again, I'm going to dig a little into Dany or later on, probably right after we're done with this conversation, actually, but I really liked the polar opposites of Dany and Jon. I liked how obviously competent and how Daenerys did all the talking on her end, but on the flip side, Jon was very short-spoken, a few words here and there, and then Davos did all the talking for him. I thought that was a very good contrast, and I really enjoyed the contrast between Daenerys and Jon Snow.
Yeah. One question I have for you guys, and maybe this is just me being crazy, but was all the shots on Dragonstone, did they feel a little weird to you?
No.
How so?
I don't know. I honestly cannot put my finger on it, but the way the scenes were shot on the beach and then the scenes with Mel and Varys, they felt... Something about the look of them felt very different from usual. I don't know if it was a different lens or something, but
Varys felt off.
Yeah.
His face looked
Varys
weird.
looked really weird, and I don't know if I don't know what it was, but something about it looked really odd, and I honestly am questioning whether or not they shot that on a different lens.
I don't really know, but I don't know. It didn't distract me from what was going on.
This isn't even a gripe. I'm just curious if you guys noticed this.
Yeah, I noticed that with the Varys scenes, not so much with any of the Dany, Jon, or Tyrion scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But that might just be because I was I haven't watched it a second time, so the first time I was just so absorbed in what was going on with those characters versus, all right, why are you guys just brooding up here?
Mm-hmm. I do think the Dothraki look really out of place, which makes sense, on Dragonstone, but especially seeing them as, guards. I don't know. There's something really weird about that.
That's kind of the point.
No, I know. I'm not even going to complain. I think it worked. I think it looked as weird as it should have been.
That I completely agree with.
Did you think the Jon, I'm not a Stark, and then immediately the dragons fly over with a little too overt?
I loved that.
I honestly laughed. And I don't know if that's a bad thing. I was like, oh yeah, I said, see what you did there, guys.
They might as well just equip Jon with a neon flashing sign that says Targaryen. Just have him constantly walk around with it.
I hope so. I wonder how Dany would react to that.
I mean, Jon needs to get his butt back to Winterfell so he can find out that he's a Targaryen.
I mean, that's true. But we'll get back. We'll get to Winterfell in a bit. So we get the little Varys Mel scene. I thought this scene was interesting, coming off of last week where we have Varys pledging his loyalty, and then we kind of go back to the more traditional Varys, where we get his continued hatred of religion and especially of the idea of burning people because of his past. But what do you guys think about Mel's line about Varys needing to die?
I think that I got the impression that it was from some sort of prophecy, and I think it would be interesting if they tied it back to what Varys heard in the flames the night he was used as part of that ritual. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if Melisandre knows about that and what she's seen in the fire. Not that her visions in the fires are all that accurate and reliable, but it'd be interesting to see the two of them have a connection through that ceremony and what the Lord of Light predicted for the two of them.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's move on to what I think is probably the most one of the most sought after moments in the history of this show of the first meeting of John and Danny. But I think Cory has quite a bit he wants to say, so I'll let Cory, you take the lead on this, on their interactions here.
I just think Daenerys came across as very, maybe this is what they were going for, but she was too aggressive, and came across as pompous and like she like deserves all of this, and like I maybe that's what they were going for, but like not bending at the knee. Like, he didn't bend at the knee for me. He didn't call me your grace. Like, so she obviously is just meeting him for the first time, doesn't know what type of man he is. So I can understand how she was thinking that he was being disrespectful and doesn't know what type of person Jon Snow is. So, all right, fine. And I understand completely how she wouldn't believe anything about the White Walkers, especially coming from someone she just met before, especially when all she wants to do is take out Cersei down at King's Landing. But my issue is she constantly accused Jon of just being insulting for the sake of insulting. So, like, why are you here? She never really gave Jon any good openings to really like rebuttal or even prove his case. And Jon, on the flip side, seemed a little too tame for his own bridges. Like, he lost a lot of his confidence, which I saw when he was, back at Winterfell. So I think they toned Jon down too much, toned Daenerys up too much, and that kind of threw me through a loop. And then the final cherry on top was, am I a prisoner? Not yet, but you commandeered his ship, so he can't leave. So I don't know what they're going for. I really don't know what they're going for. I think it was a little too aggressive for me. Does that make sense to you guys?
Mm-hmm.
I think Jon has been toned down since he was killed, though. Like, he never has really returned to his like pre-betrayal, like season 5 state. Like, he has been mellowed out, and I think it's going to be a long road for him to get back to that confidence where he can, be that old self without constantly having the shadow of, being stabbed to death over him.
Well, I kind of agree with you, but again, I saw a different Jon in Winterfell when he was addressing all the other clansmen in the north.
Well, he was in his element there.
Yeah, but like he kind of brought back his here's the thing I like about Jon. He stuck to his bridges. He was like, I am not bending at the knee, period. I'm not betraying everyone in the north right now. So I really did like that. And when push came to shove for that, he really stuck to his guns on that. But my issue was like the way he stood, I noticed his actual stance, like kind of like a halfway stance where he led with his shoulder, so he was looking down more, but not really making eye contact. And Daenerys was fully squared with him. I like kind of the body language, but I think they purposely toned up Daenerys just to contrast with Jon being so toned down.
I found Dany actually a little annoying, to be honest. Like, I understand what she's saying, but I feel like going with the continually going back to like, oh, your family made an oath to mine and that matters. And I just feel like, why does that matter? Like, they're not in power. The Targaryens aren't in power. And I feel like she still at times doesn't fully accept like what the legacy of her father is. And like, yeah, she's like, oh, I'm sorry. Don't judge me for my father. But I feel like that's a moment for Dany to be like, all right, my father was a terrible person. Let's start fresh. Let's talk to each other as human beings. And I feel like Dany is kind of going more on like this, I have this like claim to the throne through my blood. I deserve the throne because of that. And it's like, I feel like just prove to people that you should be queen, which is kind of what, like, to some degree what Dany has done throughout her life. Like, I don't think Dany's been that like bad with this. Like, she's done a lot of good with like freeing the slaves and trying her best to be a good ruler. I feel like at a certain point with Jon, like, why is there not on some level like, all right, fine, you're king in the north, let me prove to you that I'm a true queen and you'll be willing to submit to me. Like, why? I feel like there's none of that. And it wasn't even like she was like threatening, like, all right, I'm going to go, I'm going to go up to the north and conquer it. Like, it was just like, about Dany kind of just felt like, I don't know, something about her felt very like so fixated on this oath part, and I don't know if I love that.
And here's the weird part. In the same breath, she's like, I don't judge me for what my father did and my ancestors. And then she was like, oh, did you know that your father was friends with Robert Baratheon, who tried to get me killed as a baby? Like, so she was like double talking.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, I mean, she doesn't know this, but she's also wrong. Like, Ned Stark was the one who said, no, I'm not going to send
I kept waiting for Tyrion or for Varys to come in and be like, no, Ned resigned over that. Like, I was getting very frustrated with that moment. But not really frustrated with Dany, more just the show, because she had no way of knowing that.
Yeah. We finally have someone who's not, like, in awe of Ned Stark.
I'm not okay with that. Everyone's got to be in awe of Ned Stark.
I know.
But I think the reason why she was so antagonistic towards Jon is just her whole life. She's just had to fight and claw her way for people to even acknowledge that she's there. So she's just comes into Westeros in this defensive mode. She's just so used to people not even being willing to accept her either just as a queen, like as a female and as a ruler. And because she's been for most of her life in Essos, obviously, up until she landed in Dragonstone. So she didn't have any legitimate claim there. And now that she's coming here, she feels like she should be accepted right away. Because in Meereen, she had the slaves, and that was her reason to take power, because she freed the slaves, and that was her justification for taking power. But she feels that she doesn't need to go to that same length to prove that she's the rightful queen, because she was born to be the rightful queen. She is the dragon, and I think her claim to the throne is really her dragons, in a way.
I mean, I understand that, but I feel like at the end when she's like says to Jon, like, you are in open rebellion, like, you're not in power, Dany. Like, he technically became king of the North before you landed. Like, in theory, he is rebelling against the same queen you want to overthrow. And it seems there's something really off to me about, like, Dany, like, almost like sitting on Dragonstone being like, I'm actually the queen of the Seven Kings. Like, you're not actually queen yet. This is a very different conversation if Dany had conquered, like, had taken King's Landing and they're in King's Landing. Okay, then yes, you are in fact the queen, and the North is part of the Seven Kingdoms. But, like, she doesn't actually have, like, I don't know. There was something about, like, especially that line for me that felt like, can you really claim that they're in open rebellion when they're fighting against the same queen that you want to depose?
Well,
but at this point, she didn't know about the Greyjoy fleet being destroyed, or the failure at, or the High Garden attack. So I think she's still in this kind of cocky, like, I can take it whenever I want. I'm taking my time to save the most people, but I basically have this in the bag. So I'm more in everything but having the chair to sit on. I am the queen.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's more what she's going for.
But I guess we're then seeing how that attitude is not going to go too well.
Yes, but obviously, and she, throughout the episode, especially once Tyrion kind of talks to her, she definitely loosens up on that matter. Mm-hmm. And I think she's growing and changing and realizing that she can't have that attitude because, as you said, she's not the queen yet.
Yeah. I mean, that's my hope. We go over, and I guess we'll just kind of go through the rest of the stuff on Dragonstone. We get Tyrion and Jon attempting to brood together, and Tyrion, you can brood fine. You are plenty attractive. But I mean, another thing. I mean, I've said before a couple of times, like, I like when there are callbacks, and I like calling back to the fact that Tyrion did talk with Mormont about, like, what was going on the wall, and Aemon Targaryen. Like, those things do kind of matter, and I like that they're, like, it kind of gives more weight. It's like, oh yeah, Tyrion went to the wall. That was actually kind of a big deal. I think that's good. And I also think that, like, you see Tyrion sort of, like, understanding both sides and knowing how to, like, both work with John in order to achieve something and also convince Danny of something. And obviously his advice works out really well. Like for Danny, you're giving up nothing and you're getting, in theory, you're putting a lot of pressure on John to like work with you. Another thing with that, I'm also really glad that we're still getting to see that Tyrion is counseling Danny, because one thing I was a little bit afraid of, that was like, okay, we're gonna get to Westeros and like that's kind of gonna like Tyrion's hand, but whatever. But now it's like we're still seeing like very clearly that Tyrion is Danny's main advisor. He's the one who can kind of talk to her and talk her out of these things. And I'm glad that that's still like a dynamic we're getting to see unfold.
Yeah, I really, really like also like I actually finally get, this is like the first time I actually really see a hand of the king or queen in action, right? Like every other hand was just there just because they were owed a favor or because, you know, they had to get promoted to that point. And you never really see them advising. Is this the first time in Game of Thrones we're seeing the hand of the king actually be the hand of the king or the queen?
I think Davos was a hand to
yeah,
Stannis.
but sure, but no, the Stannis you're saying?
Yeah.
Stannis never listened. He only listened to the Red Priestess.
Occasionally he did, though.
In the beginning he did. Like with Blackwater Bay, he listened to Davos not to bring Melisandre.
Yeah.
And then I think that battle is what changed him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he started ignoring him. But up to that point, he had listened to him and taken his advice.
Yeah. But that is a pretty small one. Cory's point is taken, though, that we didn't, like, Ned Stark was never, like, a counselor to Robert, like...
Yeah, definitely. Well, Robert wasn't at the small council meetings.
Even more so.
How could he?
And Tywin was de facto king. He was not an advisor to, you know, the kings he served.
Yeah, definitely.
So one nice thing, and I this is, you know, something I actually got from Reddit, but when Danny and Jon start talking to each other for the final moment, and we get the line when, you know, he's like, Tyrion, you know, you talk to Tyrion. Tyrion likes to talk. We all like what we're good at. And Jon says, I'm not. I think that's a pretty clear, like, reference to Rhaegar, because we got that
not liking killing.
Yeah, the whole scene with one of my favorite scenes. I love that scene with Barristan explaining how Rhaegar didn't like killing. He always loved singing. And like Jon, who is a pretty great warrior, who's saying like, I don't like that. I don't like that, you know, that kind of thing. And I think it's a pretty, like, it seems like a pretty clear, like, oh yeah, you forget he's Rhaegar's son. Like that matters.
Mm-hmm.
So the actual conversation in, you know, on the I don't even know what to call it, but the one-on-one conversation with Jon and Danny, like, that is the conversation we've been waiting for forever. Do you guys think it lived up to the expectations that were placed upon it?
I mean, I think there was too much hype to feasibly live up to any of the expectations, but I was very satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of the episode, I was very satisfied.
Yeah.
By that point, Daenerys has rebounded and calmed down a bit. Jon showed more confidence. They were more on each other's level, I thought, and I really did enjoy it.
Yeah, I did too. I mean, there are things that are negative. This really wasn't one of them. I thought Danny finally, like, it seemed like Danny was finally coming down to the appropriate level that she should have been, and also Jon was now, like, you could see them beginning to work towards something productive. I'm curious to see what's going to happen, like, as things begin to really fall apart with Danny, if maybe she takes a more conciliatory tone with Jon, or if it goes the other direction. So I'm curious to see what happens next. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about on Dragonstone?
I mean, we could really go on forever on Dragonstone. I think it's better to jump.
We could, but let's jump over a very quick one. We see Theon getting pulled out of the water.
Oh,
I'm so
Not
done
by
with Theon. Julia, you have something to say, right?
Just that I was very disappointed that it wasn't by Gendry. You know, in his little rowboat.
In that direction, yeah. There's two Gendrys on screen. I'm so over
Why aren't there
Theon.
more?
He has
I actually like that. But did you like that scene though, Mark? Like, say what
No.
you will. No, but like I thought it was done perfectly because they had the perfect amount of disgust for him. They knew exactly that he just jumped, didn't try to save anyone. He was like a coward, and they just like left him shaking in the middle of the boat. I thought that was very well done and short.
They didn't even
too.
get him a blanket or something.
If we
Poor guy
never see him again, fine. But I have no desire to see this character on screen again.
I think you're being ridiculous.
Game of Thrones is not a world where someone like this can survive. And I don't see what's his purpose. What does he do now?
He has an arc. Like, what do you mean? What's his purpose?
relapse, but that doesn't mean he's done. Like, yeah, it's not a straight linear path to recovery. I mean,
It's
the poor
not
guy
about being a straight linear path. It's
drama.
just about like what does Theon do now? Like, are you now gonna have him go try and save Yara?
He has to redeem himself in some way. It doesn't necessarily have to be some charging into King's Landing and, you know, being a reverse of Yara trying to rescue him from the Boltons. I think he'll be able to redeem himself in some way.
So maybe he'll jump
Not
off the
in
walls
this-
of Winterfell with Sansa and save her from the Boltons?
But I don't know. I think he has more to add to the story. I think he can be redeemed again.
I disagree, but that's fine. We will move on. Now we will go to King's Landing. And I'm going to say this is by far the biggest problems I had with this episode. First and foremost, I have no understanding of why Euron parading through the streets of King's Landing with with Alaria and the Sand Snake makes any sense. I don't understand why any of the common people care whatsoever about these people. It just seemed really weird and like, oh, we wanted to have another King's Landing, people getting stuff thrown at them, but like, unless this is just the mob always cheers for the guy who wins and always throws stuff at the people who are being pulled around, why do they care about Alaria's sand?
Well, I think Marcella was pretty well loved, and I think
Marcella was well loved?
I mean, no one
I
had
see
a
what
problem.
Julia's saying. They know that the Dorns killed one of
The
the
Martells,
princesses.
they're not the Dorns.
Whatever. Yes, thank you. I'm sorry. Yes.
Like, no one had a problem with Marcella, and
I'm not saying anyone had a problem with her, but it's not like she was Marjorie.
I think Cersei would have successfully gotten the sympathy of the common people that these evil Dorns kidnapped and murdered this poor innocent princess who hadn't done anything.
I don't know. I don't understand why they care about Euron. And then on the other side, like with Cersei, I'm really like starting to get like Cersei needs to. Why do people like Cersei? Like she blew up the fucking Sept of Baelor. Like I'm not. She needs to start paying some prices for these things. And I was okay with her like sort of trying to play the race card and sort of in like, you know, the first episode and sort of like, okay, look, you don't like me, but I'm the only thing that you have to protect you from the Dothraki invasion. Why are, like, the common people should hate her.
Do the common people know she blew? I don't think the common people know what happened.
I mean, some guy in Bravos knew.
Okay, but you know, I'm saying that the common folk in King's Landing, I would not be surprised if no common person knew.
And
it
the
was her
common
that
folk
did it.
were like, A, really anti-Cersei, and B, seemed to be going pretty much towards this whole religious thing, which is completely gone. I mean, we've decided every single Sparrow is dead, and no one even remotely cares about that religious thing anymore.
Sure, all right, that's a different argument entirely, but
Yeah, but that's more mob mentality, and now that that's over, they don't really give a shit anymore.
and also there's like a freaking army of foreigners that are about to come and rape and pillage, and the only person protecting them is Cersei.
Nothing like good old xenophobia to get everyone together.
I'm fine with the xenophobic argument being why Randall Tarley sides with the Lannisters. I'm fine with like begrudgingly lords being like, okay, we will support you because we have to. But Cersei was in such a like was so unbelievably hated, and literally like, oh, Dany landed on the shores, and now everyone's like, oh, Cersei, we love you. Like, that's not, to me, that's really weird, and I'm really not okay with Cersei not paying a real price for what she did in the Sept of Baelor. Like, we're still talking about the Red Wedding. Like, we still have people talking about how that was such a big thing and you shouldn't have done that. And yet, we kind of have ignored that. Like, no one seems to really care.
It's going to come back to her. It's going to come back to her eventually.
I really hope so. And then, like, you were forgetting, like you were talking about how, like, oh, Marjorie was, Marcella was really loved. Marjorie was, like, the ultimate, and everyone loved Marjorie, and I haven't heard a single thing about that since she's died. Like, nope, no one cares.
Olenna mentioned her.
Other than her grandmother. But,
well,
like...
we haven't exactly really spent any time with the common folk, and not, besides just seeing them cheering Euron and booing the Sand Snakes. But because the only people who have spoken about it, or obviously is Olenna, but I mean, like, Randall Tarley didn't really care about Marjorie. He wasn't in King's Landing. He was off doing his own thing at Hornhill. All the people we've talked to either didn't like Marjorie or didn't know her.
I don't know. It feels like things are way too easy for Cersei, and obviously we'll talk about the end of the episode. That said, I will give Cory this. I liked the way Euron was in the throne room. He was entertained. He entertained me. He made fun of Jaime. That's always a good way to do things. He was entertaining.
That was the best. Poor Jaime this episode. Man, did he get roasted. Oh my God. Throughout the entire episode. But God damn, Euron's line to him made me literally laugh out loud, where I did not recover anytime soon. Like,
Jaime's gonna, like, slit that guy's throat in the middle of the night. I swear.
Wait, you hate Euron?
No. I enjoy it. I'm saying Jaime looks like
Jaime
he wants
doesn't like Euron.
Oh, no, yeah. They're gonna have a falling out. It's coming.
Was it also a little weird? Why did he, like, bring Yara with them? Like, that felt a little odd that she just was just, like, there. And that was it. And then they pulled her out. And, like, okay.
Prisoners. She was one of the...
I know why she's a prisoner. It was just kind of funny that he was like, all right, Yara, I'm going to drag you into the throne room, and then I'm going to drag you out. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
You're not going to have a line.
It's like slave.
No, I get why he did it. It makes sense why he did it. It's just kind of funny to me that, like, oh, yeah, she was in the shots, but she didn't say anything.
It's just so funny to me, too, how Cersei is kind of overlooking the fact that the head of the Navy and the head of the Army, like, fucking despise each other. That's gonna really blow up in her face. I
think she's overlooking the fact that Euron has absolutely no loyalty to her whatsoever, and is going to backstab her at the first possible moment.
No, I think Euron legitimately wants to marry her.
Yes, and then kill her.
He wants that throne for himself.
Yes, he wants to marry her and then kill her and then become king.
No, see, I think Cersei realizes he's not trustworthy. I think Cersei thinks she's smarter than she really is and thinks she can handle it.
Good luck with that, Cersei. That's not going to go well.
I think she's being too cocky about it, but I don't think she doesn't realize.
That better not go. If that goes well, that's another, like, no. Like, that needs to go poorly. I really did like the scene with Cersei and, Ilaria. We got, like, a lot of seeing, like, Cersei's cruelty and like the where she's going with the down her road of kind of insanity. For me, this actually felt a lot more like weirdly this felt almost more dark than what happened at the end of last season, because it was a lot more personal and, like, it was specifically one person and directed her anger at one, as opposed to, like, blowing up an entire sept.
Yeah. And just acting wise, this is definitely going to be one of the contenders for just one of the strongest scenes in the show, just acting wise, or the season.
Yeah,
like all of them
just
did a fantastic job.
Mm-hmm.
And we give so much crap to the Sand Snakes and that whole Dorne storyline for terrible acting, but I think this definitely made up for that.
So is... Oh, go ahead, Cory.
I was going to say, I also, like, it's not like a classic Lannister in power, abusing person not in power scene that, like, we've become used to with, like, Joffrey and, like, earlier Sansa. I don't feel that much pity for them, considering what they've done. And I get why they did it, and I get everything. Everything makes sense to me. But this really is a karma wave hitting them in the face. Like, am I wrong here?
I mean, that's fine, but I don't think you can say a karma wave hitting someone in the face while talking about Cersei.
No, Cersei will have it come, and Cersei did have it last season a little bit, but I'm not talking about that. I'm saying that they have this coming. Cersei, in her own mind, is probably very justified in doing what she's doing right now.
Well, yeah, this was one of the reasons I loved the scene so much was that for the first time in a very long time, you did feel some empathy for Cersei, and you really did completely understand where she was coming from with this. And I still felt for the Sand Snakes, whatever.
Valaria Sand, that's the mother.
Arya, because regardless of what she's done, it's just horrible and cruel to have to watch her daughter die like that. But, you did completely understand Cersei. And that's really Cersei's only redeeming quality is how much she loved her children. So bringing that back and seeing how devastating it was for her losing Myrcella definitely added just like a touch of humanity back to her character.
Especially considering how little we got with her like feelings for Tommen.
But that's a different episode.
Now, are you guys 100% sure that she's dead?
Yeah.
Any chance that like she's been exposed to the poison before and has drank antidotes? I do seriously doubt it.
Well, no. I don't think that's how it's going to happen, because if that's the case, they wouldn't be hysterically crying at the end of all of that. But I think there is a chance they do make it out alive, because this is almost like James Bond, like there's such an easy way to you escape. Like, all right, I'm going to give you this slow acting poison that you could, it's going to take you a few days to kill you. So there's always a chance that they get broken out. Like,
I also found very funny with like Cersei, like, Qyburn, he's the cleverest man I know. He found out the poison. I'm like, he did an autopsy. Really? I don't know. Qyburn's been getting the credit for a lot of things that seem pretty simple to me.
You don't like the super crossbow?
No, I really hate the super crossbow, but we're not talking about that right now.
It's like a crossbow, but really, really big.
But way bigger.
If you get an eye shot, you get to kill the dragon. Do you know that?
And especially if the dragon's dead and you're shooting the skull, it's great.
They're way up there, Morty. It's way up there.
So we haven't had a good Jaime Cersei sex scene in a while. So I thought that worked well. I thought Jaime's like no at the start kind of showed that there is some little bit of tension there. And I do think it's very interesting to see Cersei like flaunting their relationship now that like, okay, I'm queen. I don't care. Like, believe whatever you want.
About their love scene?
Yes, about their love scene.
I loved her reaction. I love Jaime's reaction too. Like, oh, when he's staring, like, oh, god damn it.
Yeah.
Because he's still kind of like a shame.
Well, you're seeing that Jaime, because we have seen Jaime change, and like you can tell he's becoming a better person. And Cersei, like, she doesn't care.
Yeah, she's completely stopped giving any sort of fucks.
So the final scene we have is the scene with the member of the Iron Bank. We get a little Minecraft tones showing up. I don't know. I was very confused by this scene. I'm kind of going to hold out judgment on it until we see what happens with the Iron Bank. I kind of don't care, though, because I don't know what the Iron Bank would do to Dany. Like, she doesn't need money. Like, when they say they're going to invest in her, like, how exactly? And I don't know. It felt a little like, oh yeah, the Iron Bank's a thing, and oh yeah, the Crown owes them a lot of money, and I don't know. But if Cersei just like beats the Tyrells and gets money and pays them, that's going to be kind of, I don't know why that happened. I'm very curious what they're going to do with this. I've always been like very curious as to like how much power the Iron Bank actually has, and I think hopefully we'll get to see it. And like, if not, I'll be very disappointed.
I think.
Oh, go.
No, I was gonna say I think we will.
No, I'm very confused as to why a Bravosi institution would have money in the slave trade.
They didn't. They absolutely should not. Because the Bravosi completely outlawed slavery. There is a lot of talk, because I was reading some stuff about that. There is talk
that's what I mean.
They don't, and he was just being coy with Cersei because, like, he wanted to keep his cards close to the vest.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
Which would make sense. If they actually did, then that makes no sense, because Bravos is, like, the ultimate we hate slavery. But, I don't know.
Oh, then I guess the bank is separate from the government?
Well, maybe you could make the argument that they're not actually investing in the slave trade, but they're investing in, like, things that are, like, somehow related to the slave trade. Like, they're not actually buying and selling slaves, but they're, like, making money off of...
Like Slaver's Bay investment.
Yeah, maybe. But I don't know. I've always been really curious about the Iron Bank, but that to me seems like something that's going to take a lot of time to develop, and I'm not sure how much time they have to do that. All right, so we transition up to the north. We'll get to the stuff in Highgarden towards the end. I like Sansa in power. I thought she was just showing off her stuff, planning for winter, and kind of acting as a pretty good liege lord. I thought that worked pretty well.
Yeah, she had a confidence and swagger about her. Also, like with Cersei, like she kind of just doesn't seem to care much anymore.
No, not really. So there's an interesting idea floating around that when Sansa asks about how long the longest winter is, and the Maester says, like, I'll check Mr. Lewin's records. He kept records of every raven. It does beg the question of, because Littlefinger kind of gives a look there. There's an idea floating around that there might be a record of the letter that Lysa Arryn wrote to Cat about the Lannisters killing Jon Arryn. And because Sansa knows that Lysa's the one who killed Jon Arryn, maybe that's going to be the sort of, like, way that there's going to be some conflict between Littlefinger and Sansa, that, like, Littlefinger's going to try and, like, find out if that record exists, and then she's going to find out, and, like, somehow it's all going to come out, like, all that Littlefinger has done. I think that's possible, but we'll see. I don't know.
But, I mean, they have Bran there, so is that really necessary?
I mean, it depends on, like, how...
Bran
Can Bran see everything, or can he only, like, I don't... That's a question. I don't know.
Everything in the north.
If Bran is actually omnipotent, then yes, Bran solves every problem, but that'd be kind of lame.
Is it time to address the elephant in the room, the Bran and Sansa scene?
Well, sure. But is there before that, is there anything you guys want to talk about with Littlefinger?
About Sansa, I've been on Team Sansa since day one, so I'm just so happy to finally see her getting the respect and admiration she deserves and just killing it as Lady of Winterfell. It's just made me very happy, because I'm so used to being on the defensive with Sansa. It's nice to just see her getting loved and respected.
Did anyone else like the particle physics lesson about how you should look at every possibility? I thought that was pretty funny with Littlefinger.
I don't know, he just needs to die.
He does. All right, so let's talk about Bran. Bran's coming back. Well, first and foremost, I'm going to say this every week, but I'm going to keep saying this because of how much I hate it. The Previously On really annoys me, because if you didn't watch the Previously On, you'd be like, oh, is this Bran or Arya? You watch the Previously On, you're like, oh, it's obviously Bran. Bran was in the Previously On. However, Bran's really weird, and I don't know what they were doing with that.
I think the general consensus is just that, like, everything he's seen from becoming the Three-Eyed Raven, he's just become so detached from humanity, and he has to kind of, now that he has the information, he has to learn how to connect to people to share that information. He has just become so alienated, like Dr. Manhattan-esque.
Yeah, that's a good analogy, actually, yeah.
I I understand where they're going. I don't personally like it, just the same way that I don't like seeing Arya become like no one and becoming a murderer. Like I want her to be that like cute little innocent girl that she was in season 1, and I want the same for Bran. But I get it. It's just, but also out of all the things for Bran to bring up to prove that he could see anything, like why would he bring up Sansa being brutally raped?
That was really weird.
That's my issue, because like it's one thing to be detached emotionally, physically, but it doesn't matter how attached you are. You're telling your sister that, oh, I know you got raped in Winterfell during a day like this, and you looked so pretty. That's just no. That is the writers, I think, even crossing the line. I don't understand. He could have.
Your dress looked great though.
What?
Her dress looked great, though, so you know.
I mean, you could have said to her, I saw you and Theon escaping or something. There's so many other things you could have done. Like,
I mean, I thought it was even more than that. Like, obviously he's trying to explain, and I feel like, why couldn't there just been, Sansa, I can see visions of the past? Like, is that really that hard to say out loud?
No, I don't even mind, because he proved it. Like, by telling her that, he proved it. Saying,
I know, I'm saying, but, like, he could have said that, and then she's like, I don't believe you. It's like, that moment when Dad lost his head. Like, there's a good one. There's one that two children can connect to. It is still sad. It's still going to be a bad memory, so it's not
Can't see that, though. There's no weirwood trees in the south.
But he saw visions of the Mad King screaming, burn them all, so he can see visions of King's Landing.
Oh. Yeah, I feel like that shouldn't...
There's no weirwood tree in the Tower of Joy.
Like a whole thing about how the northern gods have no power in the south because all their trees are gone.
I mean, I know, but again, like, how did he see the Tower of Joy?
Kind of annoyed with that whole thing. Like,
I don't know. They have not fully explained how powerful Bran actually is. I just feel like there are things he could have talked about in terms of the past that wasn't, oh yeah, remember that time you were raped? Like, that was weird.
And you know what? Sansa handled it pretty well. She was like, I gotta go.
Well, yeah.
It was about as much dignity as she could muster after that.
I feel like she's just like in the mindset too, where she stopped really caring. And I think
I like she was about to cry walking away.
Yeah, I thought she was gonna just, how dare you, or slap him in the face or do something, but
I don't think she knows what to do, because it's like he's so like not human. Which I guess he isn't, but I don't know.
He's a complete stranger to her.
I guess that's going to be kind of the thing. Like, Arya's going to show up, and all three of them are going to be, like, complete strangers to each other. But Arya seems a little more put together.
With Arya. Arya last episode gave me hints of her old self, especially when she got the hope in her eye that, Winterfell was taken by the Starks again. I actually saw a lot of old, pre-murderous, faceless Arya. So I don't know what she's going to be like by the time she gets back to Winterfell.
We'll see. I don't know. There's got some of the no oneness is still there. It has to be.
No, I agree with you, but I'm saying I definitely her talk with Hot Pie was very, very old Sansa. Arya like, and I'm not sure how much of her old self she still has in her.
Yeah, we'll see. I am excited to see Arya finally get back, as I think we all are.
Yes.
All right, so let's transition all the way south to Old Town into the Citadel, and Jorah is cured. Yay! Sam's the greatest physician ever. I think we all kind of said
response. I follow the instructions. Oh,
okay. I hope there's some more to this. Like there's got to be something.
What was so dangerous about this procedure? I don't understand.
If you don't wear gloves, you get grayscale, I guess.
Around grayscale patients.
I don't know.
Like
it was.
Wait, here we go. Some betting odds. What are the odds Sam has grayscale right now?
Are you telling me you have the odds?
No, I'm asking.
Oh.
Don't even look at the real odds.
What are the odds? I don't know. I doubt it. What would be the purpose of giving Sam grayscale?
What's the purpose of giving Jorah grayscale?
None. It annoys me.
Well, originally to tie in some of that John Connington stuff, but feel like that's what they initially went for, and then they're like, shit, we don't actually have anywhere we want to go with this. We don't want to kill Jorah off. Let's just cure him and get on with it.
I don't know. I mean, hopefully my hope is that something comes of it. I was then expecting, like, oh, maybe Sam's going to get expelled from the Citadel, and we're like, somehow that's going to lead to something important. It's going to be like, yeah, this was really just a mechanism for Sam to get thrown out of the Citadel. But then, like, his position didn't really change. Slughorn was like,
well,
good job. Copy these books now. I saw a theory
floating around that the books that he has to recopy are going to have to do with the White Walkers.
I guess.
And he's going to find some information. And so he is getting rewarded, just overt.
Didn't tell him?
Not so overt.
I mean, maybe. I mean, I guess, I mean, again, as always, we will have to, like, reserve some judgment for where we go. But this was kind of a little too, like, everything just kind of worked out. The guy's like, okay, good job, Sam. You're not a terrible person. Jorah, you're alive. You can go now. Like, I would have, like, I thought, because I was actually kind of expecting, like, you need to stay here. We're going to study you and, like, figure out why this happened and, like, how we can reproduce this treatment. I was like, no, you can go. Everything's good. It seemed like, and then, like, when Slughorn, I mean, I'm just going to keep calling him Slughorn because I want to. When he was like, oh, it seems like this is what you did, Sam. It didn't seem that, like, it seemed like he kind of knew how to do it and was like, I probably could have done this myself, but I just don't want to. I don't know. Everything about that was weird.
I don't know. Yeah, they rushed that storyline, and I would have liked to see something with Dragonglass come into the cure, and
yeah,
that's my main disappointment besides Bran with this episode.
Yeah. And then finally, we switch over to Casterly Rock. Well, not finally, because there's one more thing, but we have Casterly Rock with the Unsullied going off to take it. I thought that was executed well. I thought Tyrion's little sewage mission was entertaining, and it worked. It was kind of just a little good, like, Unsullied killing montage, and that was fine. That being said, a question I have for you guys. So, they were pretty, like, the Lannisters were pretty prepared for all of this. Why did Euron wait until the Unsullied got off the boats to, destroy the entire fleet in 5 seconds?
Oh, I know why. They knew they were giving up Casterly Rock in exchange for Highgarden. Jaime said it in the next scene. So the plan was for literally to strand them there at the Unsullied at Casterly Rock. Destroy the fleet when they were off the fleet and already there, and now they're going to have to march out, and now they know exactly where the army is. The army's trapped in Casterly Rock, actually.
I mean, kind of. They're not trapped. They're just there and have to walk back.
Casterly Rock, isn't there besides the water one way to march out?
I mean, you could march out.
It's a peninsula, so there's only one exit.
It's not like there's anyone there.
But the thing is, now the Lannisters and the Greyjoys have complete tally on what's going on with the Unsullied army.
Again, why didn't they just attack the boats while the Unsullied were on them and kill them all?
Well, there was no risk to... I mean, the Unsullied could have given them some sort of fight, I guess.
I don't know. It seemed it was, like, incredibly easy for Euron to just wipe out all their ships. Again, because that's Euron, and he's the greatest captain ever, and...
Yes.
I don't know.
Do you think...
They were completely... All of them were at Casterly Rock, or most of them. Acted with sacking the city.
But are the Unsullied really that equipped for seafaring combat?
Could it? I guess it's just less risk to do it like that. I don't know.
I guess. I don't know. And then they go over to Highgarden, and again, this is way too easy for the Lannisters. Like, where are they getting this army? And I know they have they have Randall Tarly, they have the Tarleys, but the Tarleys are not the only house loyal to the Tyrells. Like, there are a lot of other houses that are, like, deeply related to them via marriage, and, like, none of them showed up, and it was like, oh, well, I guess the Lannisters just took over Highgarden in an instant, because, like, that was easy.
I thought all the Bannermen went over to Cersei's side, not just the Tarleys.
I mean, they didn't say any of them. All they specifically said were the Tarleys, and I think it's kind of just in the show. Like, they're like, all right, we're just going to kind of pretend like there's no one else that matters. But I'm a little.
I got the implication that everyone else, once Tarly went over, it wasn't. Plus,
everyone did.
Highgarden isn't Highgarden just like a glorified garden? It's not really.
It's still a castle.
I don't know.
It still like requires a siege. It was just, I don't know. It's another one that's like,
who's defending Highgarden? Like,
well, if Olenna went back to call the banners, which she was supposed to be doing, where are the red veins? Where are the Florence?
But if all the bannermen are gone,
Jamie won. Jamie made it up there. He didn't come uncontested. We didn't see the Highgarden fight.
I mean, there was one. We saw some dead bodies. Someone was there.
Yeah, and they won. The Lannisters won. That was the primary Lannister fleet. I mean, army.
Which shouldn't exist anymore. The Lannisters have been fighting for 10 years.
The Lannisters right now, I think, have more organized banners for them than the Tyrells
Which
do.
they shouldn't. The Tyrells have not been fighting very much. They've been in one battle. The Lannisters have been fighting the Starks, the Stannis, and then dealing with all the stuff throughout this show. Like, they have been fighting nonstop. The Tyrells are supposed to be almost completely untouched. And yes, okay, the Tarleys went over, but it just was like way too easy for me. The way I feel like they should have done this is like, okay, you wanted to have Randall Tarley betray them, fine. The Tarleys come inside the gates, they're going to meet with him, and Randall Tarley says, I'm sorry, Olenna, but I can't do this. I'm leaving, and then they're already inside the gates. Like, that would have worked for me. Then it's easy, fine. But, like, they just easily stormed one of the 7 kingdoms and brought it to its knees because the Lannisters are just incredibly powerful and have infinite, like, it seems like they're powering up the Lannisters because they didn't want Dany to win too fast. But the Lannisters should not have this type of army anymore.
But how do we know that the Tyrells had that large army to start with? They were never a military power.
They were the big reason Renly Baratheon was supposed to have the largest army in all of Westeros when he had all of his banners, and he had the Storm, the Knights, the most of the Lords of Storm's End, the ones that didn't go to Stannis, and the Tyrells.
But that was all the Tyrell bannermen.
I understand that, but unless they've decided that just by saying Randall Tarley went over, then all of the Tyrell bannermen also went over. Which they
yeah. Now that I think about it, the banners were organized, but they're with Daenerys right now. They're not at Highgarden.
No, they're not. Dany said, go to Highgarden, call the banners, bring them back.
Is that what she said? I don't remember that.
All that's at Dragonstone are the Dothraki, and that's it. The Unsullied are gone. So it's just the Dothraki.
And the dragons.
And the dragons, yes. Who are, quote, not as invincible as you might think.
Which is true.
Because of big crossbow.
But there's like history in that. It's not like
I know.
Game of Thrones.
I'm just making fun of the crossbow. I don't know. I'm getting this, and like I said, this is where maybe in 2 or 3 episodes this is gonna calm down, and the Lannisters are not gonna feel like just completely overpowered. But right now they kind of feel that way, and I'm just like, Robb Stark was able to kind of beat them a little bit, and now it's like, oh, they just have a bigger army than everybody.
Yeah, but Robb had the advantage of them underestimating him and fighting mostly in the north, which was his territory.
No, it wasn't in the north. It's all south.
Okay, well,
all south.
Not all the northern men.
What?
The thing with River Run, when they took Jaime captive, the thing that Jaime learned from that, the move that he used on the Tyrells in this episode, they used that because Robb knew the land better.
I mean,
also had.
yeah, because it was in the Riverlands, which is loyal to him. But I feel like on that front you have like the move that Rob used to me was very like pretty different because it's different when you're in the field and you're trying to like set up battles where armies are clashing into each other compared to storming a castle. Like those, I feel like those two things are not the same.
I am upset. I agree with Mark. I am at the very least upset we didn't really get a hint of what Jamie had to put up with. Did he just waltz in the High Garden, or was there a fight? How many people
There
did he
was some
lose?
kind of fight. We saw dead, like,
No, I know that.
Terrell
But
Shields.
that could just be like a few guardsmen that are there in the castle. But what I'm saying is it would have been nice to see what the losses were on each side.
Yeah. Because again, if the Lannisters just like stormed in and it was nothing, then it's like okay, so
But
Olenna
again,
was meaningless. Like
we're kind of spoiled. But like this is more about like the imagery of what we were seeing. So like again, they didn't have time to show they wanted it's about character. Now it's about characterization, I think.
I mean, it is, but this is what I'm saying. Of like you're saying, okay, they don't have time to do that. That's what I'm a little bit annoyed about. Like, why did we wait then until this point in the show to get to this? Like, why couldn't we have? I mean, I get why, but like this is where it starts to get really annoying. That like we had the Myronese knot, where it's like we should have sped that stuff up. Like, why did we have to spend a full season on Dorne? Make that time for something interesting. Like, this is where those kind of things start to feel really annoying. It's like it just feels so rushed to me.
Yeah, and that's where I agree with you. At this point, I'm not too happy about the decision to shorten the seasons. At first, it seemed like with Dragonstone, that the opening, it seemed like it was a good idea to lower the number of episodes and increase the budget. Like, it seemed like it was paying off. But I agree that now the storytelling has kind of taken a drop in quality because of that.
Mm-hmm. So we get our final moment with Olenna and Jamie, and I thought that worked really well. I thought Olenna, like we saw that Olenna really at this point doesn't care about anything except revenge, and that's it.
She mentally checked out like in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah, she went out swinging, and that classic Queen of Thorns way, and I thought that was a fantastic final scene for Olenna.
Mm-hmm.
I love too, like when she found out that the poison wouldn't be painful. As soon as she chugged the wine, she was like, "All right, that's it. I have a lot of things to get off my chest."
Yeah,
just a few. It is interesting. Like it's been a while since we've talked about the Purple Wedding, so we kind of like forget a little bit that like was such a thing. But like, oh yeah, that was a big deal. Like Joffrey dying matters.
I love her final like words, like I want Cersei to know that I'm the one that did it, or like, and then she like described to Jamie in detail what Joffrey's face was like. It was just so perfect.
Was it Jamie was there though?
But like
reminding him.
Who was over Joffrey like once he like really
Cersei.
started? It was Cersei. Okay.
But then Jamie rushed over.
Yeah.
Wait, was Jamie there?
Yes, he was. He had just gotten
The whole point, Jamie felt so helpless because
he was Kingsguard.
and he couldn't do anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, we all hate Joffrey, obviously, but you feel for Jamie in terms of having to go through that because Joffrey was his son. And then watching Myrcella go the same way was not ideal.
Yeah, and like both they lost the fact that both of the parents had to watch their children die in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're gonna come to the end of the episode. So before we wrap up, I see that there's some things in Twitch for people to say. So, Cory, why don't you talk about it? What did people say on Twitch?
Well, it's actually Sean Ballard, my friend, who was watching and commenting. He was just talking with us. He was talking about, like, he said the big ones that we were talking to, the treatment for grayscale. This is back when we were talking about grayscale. The treatment was well known. He just said it was dangerous. It seemed that it has been done before, but not a reliable and safe method. Then he was talking about trapping all the Unsullied in Castle Rock. He was like, common military strategy. You trap them without food, and someone has to send troops to save them. Talking about trapping them in Castle Rock. And then he's talking about, with our talk about High Garden, he says money buys soldiers. Look at the U.S. military. So I guess whichever army had the more money was able to win that.
I guess that's about the Iron Bank. Like why?
Yeah.
Like the value of the Iron Bank. I mean, I understand that point, like on some level, but I feel like for Danny specifically, I don't know what Danny needs like straight gold for at this moment. Like eventually, yes, but I feel like her power is going to come from her dragons and the loyalty that her subjects have for her because they think she's basically a god.
True, but I mean, when the marching goes on, you're going to need supplies. You're going to constantly need, food, medical supplies, all that type of stuff.
I just don't know where would she buy it from. Like, basically, she's against everyone in the kingdom, or loyal or allied to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess she could buy from the Free City, or like buy it from across the Narrow Sea. Which, all right, fine. She could buy food across the Narrow Sea. That's a thing. So the Iron Bank could support.
I don't really think peasants really care who they're selling it to, as long as they get their money. So
that's true, but I feel like it's like, is Danny really going to go into the countryside and be like, "Hey, can I buy food from you?" Like, if she wants it, send the Dothraki and kill them.
Well, I don't think she would do that.
We'll see. I think that's what's coming. I think that they're pushing it like so much that she's going to be forced to do something brash because she kind of just keeps losing.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we shall see.
Yes, we will. So, we are now going to wrap up this episode and give our final thoughts, our ratings, and maybe some things we might think about for the rest of the season. So, Cory, why don't you wrap us up?
As I said in the beginning, even after talking through it, there were only two parts that I thought were weak. And you know what? Fine. All right. I will concede. Talking through it, I do agree it would have been nice to see some of the stakes of the High Garden battle, because now this is going to play a really big part of the rest of at least this season, because High Garden's where all the money is. So Cersei should be fine, at least starting to pay back the Iron Bank. But besides that, I thought there were a lot of strong scenes. I really liked, Jon and Dany. I really liked pretty much everything Euron was in. I loved Cersei getting her subtle revenge on the Martells. Overall, this episode had more strengths than weaknesses. I actually will admit, though, my score has gone down after really talking it through with you guys, and Mark, you did make some good points. So I'll tell you my original score. My original score for this episode was an 8.8. I am bringing it down to an 8.0.
Okay. How about you, Julia?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you about some of the flaws and talking it through like Cory. I'm seeing more of the issues with the episode, but I still do think it was a solid episode and satisfied. I enjoyed it the whole time. I was very entertained. I think more than anything else, just getting to see Jon and Daenerys interact, really. So I'm gonna stick with a 7 for this episode.
Okay, I think that's completely fair. I think I'm pretty negative. There are some things to like in this episode. I thought getting to see Jon and Dany finally interact was really nice. I think there were some things with Cersei that worked pretty well. And Sansa, I thought was a pretty strong part of the episode. But there are just some things about this episode that really just annoyed me. And as I kind of said, and as I kind of keep saying for me, this episode we're gonna look back on as either, oh wow, that episode was actually fine and was setting up some really cool stuff, or we're gonna look back and be like, wow, that episode was really indicative of what's wrong with this season. And we only have 4, 5, 6, and 7. We only have 4 episodes left. So we're almost at the halfway point. And I'm just a little bit concerned about the directions that we're going and where we're going to go. So for now, I'm going to give this episode a 6.5, which is still good. It's still above, solidly good. I don't think this is like a bad episode of television by any stretch of the imagination, but I am negative, and we'll see. And I mean, hopefully at some point we'll have a chance to kind of go back through Game of Thrones on kind of the Avatar style and like really dissect once we know what's going to happen. And maybe our opinions will change. And I might, we'll see. And I'll probably state like if I feel like my opinions about things have changed throughout the rest of the episode or the rest of the season. But for now, I definitely feel pretty negative. So, with that, we are going to close things out. Thank you guys for tuning in. Everyone who watched live, we appreciate that. We actually got to respond to some things on Twitch today, so that was pretty cool. If you're watching the VOD of this, though, just as well, you can leave comments on YouTube as well as on the website blog, and both of which we will respond to next week. You can follow us on Twitter at AuntWoo_pod, which is directly above me. You can follow Cory on Twitter at Cory_Hassan, right?
Yes.
We will have a regular Thoughts from Mount Woo episode coming out this week on the desert. We should have a Hearthstone video coming out soon. We had a whole bunch of new cards released, so Cory and I will tackle those when we have a chance. So look for that on YouTube. As per always, you can check out the website, and pretty much everything we do will be either announced on Twitter or be somewhere on the website. So check that out. That's always fun. All that will be in the description. I'll put that in Twitch chat, I guess, for you guys as well. So thank you guys again. Thank you to Cory for being on. Thank you to Julia for being a guest. We really enjoyed having you on.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah. Always welcome. And with that, we will see you guys next week.